So for us to start, let's initiate this with the rune R. What we see here in the background, this is called the Tolstorp runestone. And notice there is a head right there, and you can see the other head right here. You can see that there's the eye, the mouth is open, and it is a double-headed snake that is consuming like a source of wisdom. It should be of no surprise for us to find a double-headed snake, just the same way that we find the Ciucoatl in the Aztec calendar. That is, the whole outermost ring of the Aztec calendar is a serpent of two faces. On one face is Quetzalcoatl, the Christ, and on the other face it's Xolotl, which is the shadow of Quetzalcoatl. So beautiful. Let me show you here, when it comes to the magic of the runes, the rune R. This rune R is associated with movement, it is associated with journey, and it is associated with progress. R is related to words from the Nordic language that mean path, or they mean journey. And R is a symbol of ascent. It is a symbol of progress and forward motion. If you wonder, because I'm showing you here a segment of the Codex Runicus, where is that? This right here is the rune R. As you remember, as we did the practice of the rune ARIO earlier, we were standing, right foot to the side, exactly like what we see there, toes on the ground. So that is the rune R. Because this symbol is a character that implies ascent and forward motion, well, this implies that there is change, that there is transition, that there is action. And the forces of the rune R encourage the individual to embrace new experiences. So as you can see, when we are performing the practice of rune magic and we are standing, singing the rune ARIO, this is what we are invoking. We're using these forces of nature to embrace new experiences, to prepare the body for the arrival of the fire of Kundalini. That is what we're doing. So notice, it stands for purposeful journey, whether the journey is physical or spiritual. Every time that we're singing this mantra, ARIO, this is what we're invoking. But we want to give you as much balanced perspective and wisdom as we can. Dr. Arnold Krumheller was a Rosicrucian, and he is known as Master Viracocha. Samael speaks tremendously about Viracocha in his works. And you can see him here wearing his vestment, his sacred vestment as he officiated. And you can see the Rosicrucian symbol right there on his chest. So Dr. Arnold Krumheller states that there is an astrological correspondence to these runes. And specific to the rune ARIO, the correspondence is the sun. He says R in the primitive language means sun, and the variation of R is Ara. And Ara is a denomination for altar. An altar is where we offer the sacrifice of fire. I mean, in every altar, in every work of higher magic, there is always fire. There's fire in the embers that are consuming the incense. We can think immediately of the practices with the great bat god Kamazots, in which there are hot embers that burn copal. They burn seashells that are ground seashells, red, black, and white. We can imagine those ancient carvings of the Anunnaki. And we see them that in their hand, they are carrying some kind of little purse. That is not a purse. That is a container in which they bring their incense. We see the same in the Atlantean figures that exist in the Temple of Love in Tula, in the Temple of Venus. And what we see are 4 Atlanteans, and on the side, they're holding on to this pouch in which what they bring is copal for the offering of the gods. Super beautiful. And you can only burn the incense with fire. So in the altar is where we see the offerings of the sacrifice of fire. And Viracocha also tells us that this rune represents the being of light within us. That being of light is the innermost. It is our divine spirit. It is our Father who is in secret. And the rune R also brings with it the solar force that dwells in each and every one of us. And that solar force exists in our creative waters, in the solar seeds that we are all given so that we can transmute them and turn them into the virtues, the faculties, the powers of the being. This is what Viracocha says. So let me share with you a story from Master Samael Aumbeor. Let's remember, the rune R stands for motion, for change, for transition. You will see that here in this beautiful story. Samael says that in one of those many nights in which he found himself in a deep state of meditation, he reaches the state of ecstasy and abandoned his physical form. So we can infer that he is out, consciously moving within his solar astral body. He says, he arrives at the doors of a great temple of the Milky Way galaxy. This great temple has a round door that is made of stone, and as a sanctuary, it was sealed with this sacred stone. As he comes to the door, he is standing and he extends his hand and he offers the mantra, Ábrete sésamo, open sesame. Coincidentally enough, open sesame is a mantra that we sing when we are exercising the practice of the Tibetan exercises of rejuvenation. Story for another time. He offers the mantra, Ábrete sésamo, and with those words of power, the stone moves and offers him access into the temple. He is walking himself into this beautiful temple that is known as the Transcendental Church. As he walks in, he hears that there are some profane creatures behind them. And at that moment, he turns around, and as he turns around, he pulls out and he unsheathes his flaming sword. And as he waves it, he keeps the profane out of the doors of the temple. And he closes the door once again, because the access to these temples is very restricted. Okay? So he keeps them at bay, and Samael says only the sidereal gods partake of the activities at this temple, and only they prostrate before the altar. As he walks into the temple, he starts advancing, moving forward towards this place of prostration and adoration. And he starts seeing that there are simple, humble men walking in the opposite direction. He recognizes that those men that are dressed in very simple garments, that they look like regular, humble countrymen, he recognizes that those are the bodhisattvas of the gods. Let's remember that bodhisattva is the illuminated soul of a being. And these bodhisattvas come, and as they are walking, he sees them. And he perceives that there is no ego left in any one of them. These are divine beings of the utmost purity. They are of the utmost great spiritual advancement. And as he sees them, he notices that there is a very specific, humble, simple man that catches his attention. So as Samael looks at him, he sees that this man is self-conscious, that within him, the state of consciousness is the state of nous. State of nous is the greatest manifestation of the being within each and every one of us. Think of a Paramartasatya, a great master of wisdom like Jesus, like Hermes Trismegistus. So Samael sees this, and he feels in such an internal joy and happiness to be in this temple, that he continues moving forward, walking with a decisive step, but suddenly within him, he starts building arrogance. And within his arrogance, his steps, rather than being humble steps, they are triumphant steps. As he is walking with that type of inner state, he notices that one of those humble men blocks his way. And moved with that arrogance, he is thinking for an instant of just walking past him. And Samael says, "An intuitive bolt of lightning fulminated me to death." Have you ever been in a situation where in just one single instant you realize, I shouldn't do this? This intuitive bolt of lightning that, as Samael says, fulminated me to death, is equivalent to an instantaneous descent into the inner abyss. Realizing, I'm going to make a mistake. He realized that he had made that very same mistake before. And he intuitively remembered that, as he says, amidst lightning bolts and thunder, I was cast out of the temple. Realizing what he was going to do, he immediately fell on his knees. God. And he prostrated before this great master. And Samael says that he grabbed his feet and he kissed his feet. And this humble man remained very calm seeing him. And Samael said, "You are the bodhisattva of one of the great gods. You are a ruler of constellations." And the bodhisattva said, "I know nothing. I am no one." And in that infinite kindness, that great master offered Samael a blessing. And Samael says that he felt that immense joy, that he was forgiven. And in that joy and happiness, then he continued humbly to the altar. In there is hidden the rune ARIO, because it shows transformation. It shows action. It shows change. But notice that the change is always internal. We must make an effort to see our defects and recognize them, to fall humbly at the feet of our innermost. Because if there is a bodhisattva of a great God, a Paramartha Satya, who can present himself into one of these temples because he is able to be there and prostrate and adore at something like this great temple of the Milky Way in Sirius. If he can do that, and he still thinks, I know nothing, the truth is still evading me. Wow. I mean, is there anything more humble than that? Wow, it's amazing. So let's go ahead and integrate this wisdom just a little. The mantra ARIO is the mantra of the rune R. And the mantra ARIO helps prepare the Gnostic student for the advent of the sacred fire. As we work with pranayama, the harnessing of the winds, as we work with Hamsa, transmuting our sexual creative energies, we start moving atoms that are both solar and lunar from our creative organs all the way up to the temple, to the chalice of our brain. It helps us. It gives us sparks of fire of Kundalini. And that rune ARIO enables the single practitioner to move those energies better and to see the manifestation of those sparks of fire. For those who are working in the Great Arcanum, the rune ARIO helps them prepare the body for the awakening of the fire of Kundalini. What does that preparation entail? It means that working with that inner giver of light, the internal psychological trainer, it will start attracting sufficient circumstances, sufficient events It will start working to bring the right causes and conditions so that you can face your fears, so that you can be courageous, so that you can do the right thing, so that you can see that we are really nothing, that we should be operating through our innermost. The mantra must be chanted every morning, and you will divide it in 3 syllables, exactly like we were doing in our practice today. ARIO. And we will prolong the sound of each letter. And Samael says, it is advisable to work with this practice for 10 minutes. 10 minutes is so quick. 10 minutes. Viracocha says you can do this mantra 7 times. Samael says 10 minutes. So you choose to do as you please. When I do it, I follow the teaching of Samael. So this is the Rune R.